Hello, Del. Welcome to One Woman's
Uh,
Journey. It's so lovely to have you with us today. Thank you for joining us. And
my pleasure.
oh, thank you. And it's just be lovely to hear a bit about your journey and how that's gone for you and where it's taken you, and a bit about where you are now. That would be brilliant. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, then I'm going to try and have to give you the condensed version.
Yes.
Well, I was born in North Wales. So I'm originally from the UK. I found myself in California when I was 21. But I'll back up a little bit. I won't leave out those 21 years. So I grew up in a sort of unusual circumstances, I would say. It was the late 50s. And I was the product of an affair that my mother had with my father, who happened to be married and had his own family and children and lived in the nearby village. We lived in the countryside. And their affair lasted for 8 years, and they had 3 children. And believe it or not, I never met him.
Oh.
I know. The reason for that was because my mother needed, there were 7 siblings in total, and my mother had converted our little Welsh cottage at the time into, started off as a bed and breakfast, and then she converted it into a home for mentally handicapped people and mentally ill people. And so in order for the government to, give my mother money to help, take care of these people, they had to live in a house. So we lived in caravans in our backyard, and we all had separate caravans. So when my father would come, he would just visit my mum's caravan. And so we never got to see him. And that really impacted me when I was growing up. I realized, actually, even before I attended the local primary school, that our family was not normal. It was different from other families. And I had a lot of, certainly when I went to school, that's when the onslaught of, bullying and teasing and being called the B word started happening. And not just from children, from adults too. And but I would pass my father going to school, and he just wouldn't even look in our direction. And it just, I think, as many young children do, I think rather than think that a parent is incapable of loving them, they'd rather think that they were at fault. And if they're at fault, then they might be able to improve themselves and make the situation turn out differently. So I grew up with a lot of issues about, abandonment from my father, not acknowledging us. And also my mother, after she became quite successful at taking care of these mentally ill, mentally handicapped people, we rented a great big mansion, and were able to take in about close to 50 residents. So basically, my mother was really, really busy taking care of, it was like having 57 children instead of 7 children. 7 children are a lot anyway. So there was a lot of as much as I loved her dearly, there was just craziness growing up. I mean, she did wonderful things for us in her later years, but in the early years, there was quite a bit of trauma for me anyway. And so how that impacted me was I grew up to be very codependent. I had very low self-esteem. The classic codependency, which is what I help my clients with today, codependency and narcissistic, is, to become needless and wantless, people pleasers. We're always taking the temperature of the room, looking out for danger. Often children become like that after, growing up either in alcoholic families or any other trauma or abandonment. And so I sort of, continued those behaviors into my adult life. I pretty much by the age of 19 didn't really want to be on the planet anymore. And just felt, again, I just felt that I was broken. There was something wrong with
Mm.
me, that everybody else could, handle the world and I couldn't.
Mm.
So when I came to California in 81, 81, I found like it was this hub of spirituality back then. And I thought there's got to be something else in life
Mm.
rather than what I've been living.
Yeah.
So that started me on a huge journey of exploration, spiritual exploration, many different modalities from, oh my God, everything. I have a master's in spiritual psychology, but I was, doing Lakota sweat lodges and Kabbalah and everything you could think of in between.
Yeah.
With the Hindus and then I went into therapy too. I had about 30 years of traditional therapy.
Mm.
I understood everything about codependency and narcissistic abuse,
Mm-hmm.
but I couldn't find the way out. I really couldn't.
Mm.
I was, like I said, I knew it. My therapist used to say, you know it better than anybody I know, than any other doctor I know, because you've read every book, you've just you've lived it. And he encouraged me to become a coach in helping other people with codependency and narcissistic abuse. And I always made them, I felt that I was helping them feel understood and seen, heard, because that's often what you don't feel is seen and heard as a child, or validated. But I couldn't show them the way out because I hadn't found the way out.
Yeah.
And that's when I came across the principles.
Mm.
And well, first of all, I came across it about in 2009, but it was only one book and it wasn't called The Principles. It impacted me incredibly, but I didn't know how to deepen in it. Okay. And then in 2015, I came across it again. And then in 2015, it didn't have a name either for me. And then in 2016, somebody said, this is The Principles. And there was this whole community and all these books. And I just absolutely immersed myself. So that's when I saw things very differently. And found, as I say, the freedom I've been looking for.
So taking you back a little bit, what were some of the thoughts or core beliefs really that you had about yourself in your young adult life, really setting out? You mentioned about not really wanting to be here, and just wonder what sort of thoughts were repeating and beliefs about yourself were happening from you from that childhood.
Well, I definitely felt, I know it's so silly, but the word illegitimate, I took that to literally mean I was not legitimate. And I'd had an experience when I was about 4 years old, when my mother was pregnant with my younger brother, and my father's wife visited us. And it was very painful. And I felt, even at that early age, I felt, what have my mother and I done to hurt this woman this badly? Because she was obviously visibly upset. But one of my very first thoughts was, I should never have been born. I somehow made it onto the planet illegally. I took it as illegal. And that my sheer existence was hurting this family. And I held on to that very, very deeply. And then and I wasn't lovable. I mean, the fact that, you can father a child and not have a connection to them, I took it to, there was something wrong with me. I was never good enough. I thought if I was slim enough, pretty enough, clever enough, whatever enough, so the not enoughs were massive. And I was very, I think I was very afraid. I was a very scared child. And my older sister, who was only a year older than me, basically had to look after me. And I think that I got the message unconsciously. I mean, we have a wonderful relationship now, but the message was that I was needy, weak, and pathetic. And so I really became needless and wantless just to be able to be tolerated. And the same with my mother too. She was so busy that the only way I could ever sort of even be around her was to be needless and wantless, because otherwise it was just one more thing she had to take care of, and her plate was full.
Mm.
So really, I felt that I was a bother, not good enough, unlovable, and a mistake. She'd never been here. And, you know, quite honestly, my neediness did get me sort of into some abusive situations, and which just confirmed even further that I was only good for one thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that I'd asked for it, and I was, again, it was all that same thing, broken, damaged, all that stuff.
So moving from really a position of believing that you didn't have permission to live, you didn't have permission to have needs and wants, and that took you then to a place in your young adulthood, I guess, where you continued to deny any need or want, and tried to build relationships from that, I guess, and I guess that impacted you even more.
It did, and I, you know, interestingly, I think when you think that you're broken and damaged, you look for other broken, damaged people to be with, because at least they get you. You know, they understand you because they've been through some of the same things. So yes, you know, I had some wonderful men in my life too. Those are the ones I left. the ones I stayed, the ones that were damaged. You know, it was one of those sort of, you know, phenomenon that happens. And I was attracted to what I thought was strong men, very dominant, because I felt so weak. I had this thing about, oh my God, you complete me, you know, you're the strength I need, you're the this I need, until it turns it on you. So I often found myself with narcissistic men. And, you know, when you're a codependent, you're the perfect fit, because, you know, you're all about giving and giving. I mean, not that it's giving in a healthy way. I was giving to secure love, you know, like, I was indispensable, so therefore you wouldn't leave me, because I made sure that you were well taken care of. And unfortunately, that dynamic will attract a mate that's a taker and wants it all to be about them. So that was, you know, the pattern of my relationships, not very healthy ones. So.
And then you went on to study different psychologies and different spiritualities, and now you're working with codependency and narcissistic abuse, aren't you, helping other people? And you mentioned previously about, well, you knew all the theory and you studied all the books, but actually you still weren't really finding the answer. And maybe you could tell us a little bit about the difference coming across the inside out understanding, you know, made to all that study and all that theory. You know, how did that then, you know, bring life and hope to both you and the clients that you were working with?
Yeah. Well, interestingly, when I first, like back in 2016, I'd say, when I first came across the principles, I would hear Dr. Bill Pettit talk about, you know, there's no personality disorders, there's no this, and I thought, oh God, I can't keep working with, you know, talking about codependency and narcissistic abuse. Apparently there aren't any. And I realized I sort of threw the baby out with the bathwater a bit, because when I started coaching the principles, I just coached everybody, and I still do. But what happened not that long ago, actually, within the last year, is somebody approached me who said, I heard that you work or used to know or work with codependency and narcissistic abuse. And I was like, and it was somebody in the 3P community. And yeah, but and they were like, please help me. I can't get my head around my relationship, and I should know better. I know it's my thinking. So I said, well, let's have a couple of sessions, and we did. And she just said, oh my God, this is life-changing. I'm a 3 principles practitioner, but I couldn't see what was happening in my relationship. And what and I was so excited when she said that, because I thought, oh my God, I was taking things too literally, you know, because really all we're doing is we're pointing to a set of behaviors, not diagnosing the person. You know, anybody can change and see something differently. So we're just talking about a dynamic and a set of behaviors based on somebody's thinking. And so what I saw, and again, it had never really landed for me before. I'd you know, heard we were all one, we were all equal. I heard it here, but it was no way could I believe it in here. That was just, yeah, everybody else, not me.
Yeah.
And I just saw something so differently. I was really able to say, oh my God, we are all born equal. We are all created equal. Okay, I know we have our little wonderful human expressions of who we are, but we are spiritual beings having that human experience. And I saw that I was equal to everybody else. I saw that I wasn't broken. I saw that all resilience was a massive one for me too, knowing I had my own resilience. So I didn't need to seek out what I thought were strong, powerful people to you know, be there for me. Then, you know, I was like, oh my God, you know, I have that strength in me. I have that resilience and that innate well-being. And then I also saw that other people's behavior had nothing to do with me. It really didn't. It had to do with their thinking.
Yeah.
You know, if I was with somebody that had cheated on me, it didn't mean that I was, you know, not good enough. I took that as I'm not good enough. You know, if they needed these other women, then there was something wrong with me. Now I'm like, you know, because again, even after a really long, bad relationship, I still was obsessing about how could this person do this and how could the person do that. When I found out about separate realities, it's like, I don't need to keep going there.
Yeah.
They had some thinking that they believed that they were entitled to do this on the side, and it had no bearing on me. So the freedom from that, trying to think some of the other things that I saw. Oh, my insecure, oh my God. When we realize that we all do it, and they're not telling me about me. So those insecure thoughts I carried around all my life, I used to think, well, if they're in my head, they're telling me about me. I never entertain that everybody gets crazy insecure thoughts, and they're just energy flowing through us, and they mean nothing. And you know, you just grab onto a couple of them, and you know, just, you know, it's a habit. That's all it is. It's a habitual thought. And then the other big one was around sexual abuse. Just knowing that, again, stuff happens in life. Stuff does happen. I'm not going to deny that we're not impacted by life. I think Sid says life is a contact sport. And I think we are. You know, somebody said it beautifully the other day. They said sometimes life bruises us, but you know, that's on the surface. Who I was at my center, my core, the essence of me was never touched. So even that, it's just like, I'm very much also not bringing things through time. You know, realizing that the past is the past. Yes, it impacted me in certain ways, and I made certain things mean certain things. I take 2 and 2 and make it 20. But it didn't. I don't need to carry that with me. You know, it really is. Every day is a chance at a new beginning if you just understand the nature of thought, and that it's just and history or memories are just thought carried through time. And so those are some of the big things that impacted me. So many other things as well, but one thing I did want to say, I think what happens with emotional abuse, it's so tricky, because with physical abuse, nobody's going to say to you, if you have a black eye or a broken arm or something like that, it's just your thinking. You know, you have a physical wound to point to and say, it's not my thing. Now, with an emotional abuse, I think what can happen, unfortunately, in the 3 principles understanding, is it sometimes you can be being emotionally and spiritually and psychologically abused, and you can start dismissing it because you start thinking, well, it's just my thinking, it's just my thinking. And I think that's why I love doing what I do, because it helps my clients understand that, yes, we experience our thinking, but sometimes some situations are just harmful and
Mm.
damaging, and you don't have to be there. You
Mm.
don't have to suffer because you should be able to think your way out of it.
Mm.
I
Mm.
think is a
Mm.
very important point, I think.
Oh, absolutely, yes. Because I think that, you know, people can misunderstand it's just your thinking as something
Mm-hmm.
that, you know, it can sound flippant and, oh, well, okay, you're asking me to think more positively then, or, you know, that sort of thing, really. So you mentioned about how our thoughts are just passing through, really, and some of them we tend to, you know, grab hold of, and we think they're just about us. They're not about other people. That must be about me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and how actually we all experience life through a separate reality, because we're having separate thoughts, but actually there's a lot in common as well, isn't there, about people who don't feel good enough or don't have permission to live, or feel rejected, and also what you mentioned about, you know, if a relationship broke down, for example, then that had to mean there was something wrong with you. And actually, through the understanding, you were able to see actually the other person was in their own separate reality, and that was about them and their situation and their thinking. And actually, you didn't have to keep taking other people's behavior or thoughts, you know, as evidence about there being something broken or not good enough, you know, about you. And those sort of insights, I mean, they're just huge, aren't they, for a person who feels like, I've never been good enough, I'm different to everybody else in the world, and it's never going to be okay. And certainly lots of people that spend their time and their careers going to help other people, because they think, well, everybody else can change, everybody else can have a better life, but not me. That doesn't apply to me, you know.
Yeah.
But I do this work because I know it applies to everybody else. And having that insight and seeing actually we are all exactly the same at our core. You know, those insights that you mentioned, they're just, I mean, they're huge, aren't they? They make such a difference.
They're life-changing. I mean, my life is, you know, we were talking earlier about that we both do these shows where we interview
Yes.
each other.
Yes.
I was so shy for all my life. I was hiding. It was like I didn't want to be seen. You know, there was a little voice in my head, it's dangerous to be seen. And since coming across this understanding, it's like it's like the whole world just opens up to you. Just let go of those sort of outmoded survival mechanism of
Yeah.
you know, thoughts that you had as a child. And the other thing I want to point back to, the couple of things, is often when you experience abandonment or trauma as a child too, you have unbelievable amounts of shame. Shame is such a toxic emotion. And again, when I say I was shy, I think I was just so full of shame. I was just hiding because I just didn't want people to see how shameful I was, and broken, damaged, and pathetic, and weak, and all the things I called myself. And you know, so when you can let that go and you realize there's nothing wrong with you, you don't force yourself into anything. It falls away, and this whole new life opens up for you. And the other thing I wanted to mention too is forgiveness. You know, or letting go of the, you know, when you can see that somebody genuinely, even if they did a behavior that was hurtful to you, they genuinely were just acting out on their thinking. So when you understand separate realities like that, it's almost nothing to even forgive, because it's just like, to them it made sense. To them, their level of consciousness, their level of thinking at the time, it made sense. So I found it was so much easier for me to just let go of it all. Let go of any hurt and anger, self-blame, blaming them. It was just, you should just go, I'd rather be looking somewhere else, you know. recreating something beautiful and new rather than
Yeah.
dwelling in the
Yeah.
past.
Yeah. Yeah. And that self-forgiveness as well, and that, you know,
Mm.
just to forgive ourselves for how we may have punished ourselves for feeling, you know, no good, and you know, we've sort of punished ourselves as well along the way. And it's like, well, the understanding really helped me anyway to look back and say, okay, I was just doing what I thought was best, you know, at the time, you know, and a lot of those survival um, behaviors or strategies, you know, that's what sort of occurred to be the best thing to survive. Um, so it's seeing through that as well, and seeing, well, that was just the best thinking I had at the time, you know, and it was what with good intent, you know, to protect and survive. So it's very freeing for us and for others, isn't it? And as you say, others who may have harmed us, we may have harmed others, you know, and you know, seeing that it's innocent, really, isn't it? It's
It's my
innocent.
favorite word.
Yes.
The innocence, but it is innocent. You know, nobody gets up in the morning and says, you know, I want to be really evil today.
Yeah,
You know,
I really want to hurt somebody. Yeah.
most of us are getting up, doing the best we can.
Yeah.
And like you said, I also think it's like, I think it's a survival mechanism. My survival mechanism was, if I keep myself down and very small,
Yeah.
I won't get so hurt.
Mm.
If I attack myself first and tell myself all these terrible things about me,
Mm.
I will be like just this big.
Mm.
So if somebody comes and squashes me, I've only got that far to go.
Yes.
I remember like innocent comments like,
Yeah.
"Oh, don't get too big for your boots,"
Oh yes.
or you
Yeah.
know, "Who do you think you are?" And you know, there was this sort of like message of, you know, keep yourself small to be,
Mm. Mm.
and again, so innocent.
Yes. Yeah. Not being seen, not being heard. You know, being as invisible as possible. You know, to avoid being hurt or neglected or abandoned, or you know, in any of those things really. And yeah, I mean, I guess for anybody watching, you know, it's difficult to sum it up really, but perhaps you could give it a go at sort of summing up what this understanding is. What is the inside understanding? Inside out. Yes.
Boy, what is it?
Mm.
Some days it seems so simple, and other days it seems so complicated. For me, it's just the understanding that, as I said before, just knowing that we're all created equal. We all come with this built-in GPS of wisdom and resilience and strength, and that is never broken or damaged. That we all know that that's who we are at our essence, and that we experience life via our thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, as I said before, I do believe that there are things in life that impact us, but, you know, being one of 7 children, I can see how differently we all responded to some of
Mm.
the same
Mm.
circumstances.
Mm.
So right there, it's how we interpret, how we view things that basically is how we experience our life.
Mm.
And yeah, that's really it. It's just to, you know, to know that, for me, more than anything, I love my painting over there, a
Yes.
friend painted.
Yeah.
It's surrendering to what is, which is every single, I don't think we would have been created with the capacity to feel the wide range of emotions we can
Mm.
feel, from love, hate, whatever it is. But just being okay with whatever emotion or thought flows through us,
Mm.
to not judge it, not try and control it. I love Sid's, you know, if all we were, we're not afraid of our experience, that
Yes.
alone would change the world.
Change the world. Yeah.
And that is how I experience life now, is because I don't run from anything, or I don't judge anything,
Mm.
I allow it to just move through me, and I'm like, whoa, this is so expansive. You know, I get to, as Sam said the other day, I get to play with all the crayons in the little box, you know, all the different colors.
Yeah.
And so I always say it's not, you don't change your thinking, you change your relationship to your thinking. You
Yeah.
just relax and you don't fight it. I'm in a bad mood. I'm in a bad mood. I know it's going to pass.
Yeah.
You know, I don't chase the highs. I let it all be. So that for me is massive. So I would say it's, yes, how I relate to those hundreds of thousands of thoughts that are rushing through my head.
Yes. Yeah.
And when you don't take them so seriously, they just, you know, calm down.
Yeah.
So.
They pass through, don't they? And yeah, I love that. You know, your relationship to your thinking. You know, I think that's a really key point, actually. Now, it's been so insightful, and it's such a pleasure, really. And I say insightful because that's the title of your conversations, isn't it? Insightful conversations. And I wonder if you could just let people know what you're up to and where they could find you if they'd like to connect with you.
Great. Well, as you mentioned, I have a weekly show called Insightful Conversations. You can either watch it on YouTube or listen to it on the podcast, same name. And I interview amazing people each week. I have Nicola Bird on tomorrow. And then individually, you can find me at Adey-Jones.com. I teach the principles and I mentor and I speak, and I'm holding a 6-week workshop right now for finding the way out of codependency and narcissistic abuse through the understanding of the 3 principles. I just finished my last one and it went really, really well. So I'm so excited. That's going to be an ongoing program I offer. And yeah, and individual coaching too. So
yeah, brilliant.
It.
Thank you.
Right.
Thanks so much, Dal.
It was a pleasure. Really lovely to meet you and talk to everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.